I want to talk. Talking about their choices and the things, I said that, it's their prerogative. Kudos, Bobby Brown. But I had a problem with the drunken driving thing, and the people who were injured and endangering other people's lives with your actions like that. I have a problem with that. One thing that, the big conversation that's going on is the Me Too movement aspect of the Dirt coming out at a time where, people are hypersensitive to that, celebrating women, recognizing women, empowering women. The Dirt comes out, which puts women in a very objectified position. And, you see, women being, just as sex objects. And I heard that, Nicki's been doing interviews and stuff like that. And I saw some place where, he said that he's very pro Me Too. And he doesn't see what happened in the 80s as not going against Me Too. And he says, we were getting some and the girls were getting some too. This was not, women weren't being forced to do these things. They were choosing to be a part of this. And I always felt that rock and roll, I didn't expect to see a lot of Me Too coming from rock and roll. We've seen a little bit with Gene. He's got a unique take on things. But for the most part, you haven't seen it coming out of the rock and roll world because there was no need to force yourself upon women. There was no need to corner a woman or make her do something. There were women who wanted to party, and if men wanted to party, they could party. You know what I mean? So it wasn't, and that's Nicki's point. It wasn't, they weren't forcing themselves on women. The thing that, and I agree with them. This is a moment in time, and I don't like the PC thing. I don't like the fact that, we're so hypersensitive that someone can't make a movie like The Dirt, which is documenting something that happened, the way it happened, as long as it's not making up lies. And, it isn't. So I think that, I don't have any problem with that. The one thing about what I saw, and I found it to be, bothersome, was how fucked up they were. This was, about the band being a family. Let me clarify. Take that account how fucked up, not how high. To each other when it came to women. There was so many situations where they were screwing the other guy's girlfriend or their record company guy's girlfriend, that deliberately going after their friends' old ladies. And you could say, well, they weren't serious or whatever. Well, I know I've had a personal experience with Vince, and I won't get into the gory details because there are no gory details. But let's just say that Vince came on to my wife, knowing she was at a cruise show. It was Ozzy and crew. She was at a cruise show. My sister, now sister-in-law, was her best friend, worked for Elektra Records. I had just come back off the road. I'd seen Ozzy over in Europe. I didn't want to go to a show. I just wanted to hang out with my son. So Suzette went out with her best friend to the show, and they were backstage, of course. They worked for Elektra. She worked for Elektra Records, and unbeknownst to Vince, two of my brothers were there with my wife. They weren't right on top of her. One of them was dating Suzette's best friend, is now his wife of many years. So he was watching, and my other brother was there, and they were told, keep an eye on my interests. Okay, they didn't hang out on top of them. So Suzette was backstage, and the guys knew that Suzette was my wife, the mother of my son. And let's just say, without getting into any gory details, Vince did hit on my wife. And it didn't go, Suzette is not a groupie. One of the things I loved about her was she didn't own any stereo. She didn't care about rock and roll. I had to pursue her and chase her. She just was not impressed. So that stuff doesn't impress her. And, she's been around her whole life. And what I say to you is my brothers bore witness to it. So they watched, saw what went down, and and they didn't even have to step in. Suzette, you don't fuck with a Brooklyn Italian chick, a mob princess of all things, and in fairness to Vince, he doesn't have to go that far. You know what I mean? If it isn't reciprocal, if she's not, he's making an advance, she's not coming back, he stepped away. But why, knowing it was my wife? This is going to be the next article online. But he knew it was my wife. He knew it was the mother of my child, and to even attempt it. And then I watched the Dirt, and I see Nikki banging Tommy's girlfriend in the back room, and Tommy the one he thinks he's going to get engaged to, and Nikki, I think, banging their record company executive's girlfriend. And he found out years later that he had. There was that sense of that lack of the word propriety. What happened to man code? What happened to guy code? You know what I mean? So I just saw that this was their way. And if these are your brothers, and if these are your friends, and the whole thing was, we're a family. Did they use that they were drunk? Did they use that they were high as an excuse? It's not acceptable excuse to me.